In 1997, Japanese-based company Square Enix released Final Fantasy VII, a critically acclaimed game that arguably stands amongst fans as one of the best Final Fantasy installments in the series, as well as the RPG genre. Met with huge praise because of its, at the time, groundbreaking visuals, immersive score, distinct art design, and emotional themes and storyline presented throughout the game. No game at the time of its release had the magnitude that Final Fantasy VII had. Square's first 3D Final Fantasy was a huge success, pulling both new Final Fantasy fans as well as new gamers to the RPG genre, a game whose legacy and following can still be seen today. Following off the success of Final Fantasy VII, Square began immediately to start work on the next installment in the series, Final Fantasy VIII. For Final Fantasy VIII, series creator Hironobu Sakaguchi took a less active role in the development, being heavily involved with the production of Square Pictures' first jump to Final Fantasy on the big screen. In 1998, after Square finished production on Final Fantasy: The Spirits Within, they began working on the 9th installment of the Final Fantasy series immediately, before Final Fantasy VIII was even finished. Sakaguchi returned to write the game's story and oversee all aspects of development, with Final Fantasy VI director Hiroyuki Ito taking a director position once again. After he completed his work on Final Fantasy VIII, legendary series composer Nobuo Uematsu returned to write Final Fantasy IX's soundtrack. Sakaguchi and developers wanted Final Fantasy IX to be a reflection of the classic Final Fantasy themes and experiences, a sum of everything they have done so far. Because of this, Sakaguchi wanted the environments, characters, game mechanics, and story all contain a much more classic fantasy feel, as opposed to the previous two entries in the series. Square was worried that these changes would polarize fans, especially those new to the series, most notably the North American audience, because of the drastic change of the game's direction. Because of this, the developers threw around the idea to not tie the game in with the numerical entries at all, and have the game to be a spin-off in the series. In late 1999, Square officially announced the game as Final Fantasy IX. Final Fantasy IX was released July 7, 2000 in Japan, and North America later that same year. The game begins with the main protagonist, Zidane, and his band of actors turned thieves planning to perform a play with an inside scheme to kidnap the Princess of Alexandria, Princess Garnet. Plans go awry when Princess Garnet herself wants to be kidnapped, and Zidane with fellow comrades nearly escape with their lives as they try to flee Queen Brahne's retaliation. A confused Garnet, about her mother's disregard for her safety, sets out to discover the truth behind troubling rumors of her mother's plans to conquer the remaining kingdoms of the world, known as Gaia. Along the way, Zidane is acquainted with different characters, each with their own motivation and personal journey in the world of Gaia. Vivi, a black mage who's searching for the truth behind his origins, an inevitable demise. Steiner, a loyal and honorable knight who never questions his sworn duty to protect the kingdom of Alexandria at the cost of his own laurels. Amaran, a bodyguard turned wanted man, hunting for the one responsible for his persecution. Freya, a skilled dragon knight and hero of the kingdom of Burmecia, searching for her long-lost lover. Aiko, a horned girl with a mysterious past and the ability to harness the power to summon powerful creatures that cause ultimate destruction. And Quina, an eccentric, skilled chef traveling the world to taste the finest dishes that it has to offer. The 8 of them set out on a journey to stop a queen's tyranny and end up in a battle not only for their kingdom, but multiple worlds as well. Final Fantasy IX's main antagonist is Kuja, a mysterious and powerful man who is nurturing the Queen's ambition to conquer the kingdoms and cause chaos. It is discovered that Kuja all along had been influencing the Queen and using her greed to his advantage to cause as much death and destruction in the world as possible. It is also revealed that Kuja was created in a parallel world to Gaia, known as Terra, to be raised in Gaia and cause war in the nations to elicit the return of souls to Terra. As a prototype Angel of Death, he learns of his expiration date, along with the true Angel of Death's identity, as main protagonist Zidane, whom, unlike him, was given the power to live on and fulfill his purpose. Deeming it unfair for existence to exist without him, in his own fear of death, attempts to destroy the source of all life before his time is up. Final Fantasy is well known for its beautiful music that encompasses its universe. Nobuo Uematsu returned to compose the soundtrack to Final Fantasy IX. He spent an estimated year of the game's development writing over 150 tracks, 140 to be featured in the actual game. With previous games, the mood was more dark and realistic, thus the music portrayed a much gloomier feel. With the new direction, he felt a more medieval theme to the music would serve better, stating that, "I create music that fits the events in the game, but sometimes the event designer will adjust a game event to fit the music I've already written." Uematsu has claimed several times that Final Fantasy IX's music score was his favorite in the entire series. Because of the series' creator, Hironobu Sakaguchi's desire to have Final Fantasy return to its roots, art design drastically changed from the previous entries. Characters were designed more cartoony and colorful, with disproportional bodies and fantasy-like appearance. The world took on a much more steampunk theme compared to the sci-fi-esque worlds of previous games. Series staples like chocobos, summons, Moogles all make an appearance, along with the return of long-omitted themes such as black mages, Garland, summoners, and crystals. Along with being a conceptual return to the roots, Sakaguchi also wanted the technical aspect of the game to reflect older games as well. Parties were made up of 4 members, with each character having his or her own role in combat, complete with strengths and weaknesses: a white mage to heal, thief to steal, tank to produce heavy damage, and black mage to cast spells, among many others. Along with a much more simplified equipment, ability, and level system, it was the most technically traditional Final Fantasy game on the PlayStation 1. Final Fantasy IX was a top-selling game during its time in both North America and Japan upon its release. Although falling under sales records of its 2 PlayStation predecessors, it is considered by many to be the most underrated title in the series. Critics praised the game for its dubious amounts of nostalgic elements found throughout, presentation of the fantasy style, return to gameplay mechanics, and deep character development. Many gamers enjoyed the game's story elements reflecting upon classic Final Fantasy tropes. Those who take a stand against the game, however, take issues with the unrealistic characters and very cliché fantasy themes. Many also view the subplots to be irrelevant to the overall story of the game. Another issue people stay upon is the game's bizarre and random conclusion, most feeling it served absolutely no purpose and was a lazy ending to a finely crafted story. Some of these claims have validity in the development, as the ending was rewritten a total of 7 times before release. Series creator Sakaguchi has stated many times that Final Fantasy IX is his personal favorite. Final Fantasy IX was the last game for the series on the original PlayStation, with Final Fantasy VII, 8, and 9 Many consider this time to be the gold mine period of the series. With its uniqueness from other Final Fantasies of the era, distinct art direction, classic themes, and an enveloping soundtrack, it holds itself as one of the best RPGs of its time and cult favorite of the series for many.